So I have my favorites when it comes to visual novels. And over a year ago, I posted a video where I ran down my top 20, was it? Did I do a top 20? My top favorite visual novels that I had played up until that point. Now, a few new ones have come out. The rankings have changed for a lot of them. And I will probably be making a video addressing the changes more specifically. But in that video, I mostly talked about the good, at least in the top 10, because the bottom 10, not bottom 10, but 20 through 11 were mostly like, oh, I like it, but I haven't played it much, which is not really much of a review. I do have an opportunity here to talk about the things that are just complaints. Because I make videos on these visual novels, and I spend a lot of time talking about what I do and don't like, talking about the praise I have for them, and they could go on forever. I could go on forever with that. But now I want to lay out some of my gripes. All right, everybody. I've been told I need to talk quieter. And I'm not going to talk like that.
I didn't say talk quieter. It said quietly.
Yeah. I am going to be going in this segment solo because Bree's having a migraine in the corner. So, prayers for Bree. This is the things I've always said, my positive stuff, but now I'm going to talk about just the gripes. And just for disclaimer, these aren't my only opinions about these things. I just decided to segment my criticisms, big or small, significant or not, and just go down the list. And this is not the same top 10 that I had before. I'm only doing the top 10. I'm not doing the top 20. This is the newly ordered top 10 as of right now, and it'll probably change before I make an actual top 10 video because my opinions are fickle. But anyway, so it's time for me to shit on the things I love. Sit still. But this will also tell you kind of where my top 10 favorite visual novels are right now. But that'll, like I said, that might change. But as of right now, this is the top 10. Starting at number 10, we have Major Minor by Clace. Yes, a long time ago played this one. And the ones I've written down are not in order. These are not in order at all. These are just whatever came to my mind, and definitely not the only ones I have about any of them. But the first problem I wrote down was forgettable. The unfortunate thing is this could just be because I played it a long time ago, but compared to some of the crazy shit that's gone on in the other visual novels I've played, it's hard for me to remember a lot of what happened in Major Minor. Granted, my memory is just kind of bad in general, but Major Minor, I have trouble remembering that I even played it sometimes. And that's not to say that it isn't eventful, but it certainly isn't crazy, as it were. And it doesn't have to be crazy to be good, but there is something to be said about how long something stays in your head. I see our dog has wandered into the room.
Hi, Spoopy.
There he is.
He's now your co-host.
Oh, God.
Sir, what do you have to say about the current climate condition?
Other thing about Major Minor is a lot of the characters are rather one-dimensional. There are a number of complicated and complex characters, but there's a lot of fucking characters, and it's not a terribly long game, and so a lot of the characters kind of get segmented into certain personality traits, and with a few exceptions, they're kind of just that. The game is very polished. It's very smooth. The sound effects are good. The art is decent. And it runs smooth as all hell, but the actual substance of the game is not as complex as a lot of the other games I've played. I could only imagine what a game like Echo would be like if it had the presentation of Major Minor. A lot of the game is segmented into 2 different segments. Yeah, segmented things usually are in segments. But with this one, the segments are so wildly different and barely coincide that when you're in one world versus the other, it feels like you're playing 2 different games, which wouldn't be the biggest problem in the world if the 2 different games you were playing were equally as fun. Every time I had to go to the real world, it felt like I was being forced to do it. And when I got to go to the other world, it was way more fun. And that can be a problem when you're putting the player's perspective in multiple places. What the fuck does this mean? I wrote these down in like bullet points, and so some of these don't really make sense. It says emotion changes non-existent. Oh, okay. So yeah, this would be referring to the character sprites. The character sprites are all static, which is unfortunate because this is an older game, and emotion changing sprites have been the norm in visual novels in a long time, but for small scale furry visual novels, they were not always the norm. I've played several games that over the course of me playing them, I got to witness their developments. Echo for a long time didn't have many emotion changing art sprites, and this game was finished before they got any, so it kind of does create a bit of a problem when you're trying to convey emotion and no one's actually expressing any. The villains are way over the top and unrealistic, and it feels like they can only be stopped by bullshit because otherwise they would just destroy everything. Like, you have these big hulking monsters with gears and shit, and it's like, there's no fucking way. Like, the entire build-up to it is so much smaller scale. It's like if you threw Thanos into a John Wick movie. Like, it's not diminishing either one of them, but it doesn't fit. It feels like it came from another game. 3 different fucking games at play here. And this creates a huge amount of tonal dissonance. Because I don't know what the fuck the theme is supposed to be. What the fuck is the tone supposed to be? There's certain parts of the game that are intended to create an atmosphere and an element, and there's certainly some themes present, but like, I wouldn't call the game funny. It's dramatic in places. It's interesting. I don't know what the fuck to describe this game as. It's not a comedy game. It's not a drama game. It's not romantic in any way. There are some romantic moments, but it's not a romance game. It's not even a fantasy game because only half of the game is in a fantasy world. I don't know what to fucking call this thing. Overall, the last thing I wrote down is interesting idea, not as interesting execution. I do like the idea of when people die, they go to a different world. I like the consequences of that coming back at them and how it could be manipulated and all that other stuff. I like that idea. But I just don't know if this was the most realistic or interesting exploration of that idea. Obviously, there are a lot of good things I could say about Major Minor, and I already have plenty of times, but this is just the gripes, so don't take it all as if this is my only opinion. Number 9 is Doki Doki Literature Club. I'm going to write down which number I'm on, because I only have them written down with bullet points. Doki Doki Literature Club is my number 9 favorite visual novel. And it's hard to say that because Doki Doki Literature Club doesn't seem like a visual novel, even though it is one. It's all made in Ren'Py, it's in the visual novel style, but I would more easily call it a horror game. And so it's I don't know, that's not really a gripe. It's just weird to put it on the list. I always forget about it when I'm making these lists. My biggest gripes with Doki Doki Literature Club are kind of victim of what it's trying to do. Once you play it once, the novelty wears off immediately. Like, that first playthrough you get, if you do it right, which is, it's hard to get right the first time through, because you have to have, like, you looking through files, and everyone gets a different play experience, so there is more exploration that can be done with other people playing it, looking at their playthroughs or collaborating with other people to find out what they got in their playthroughs versus yours, which makes it a very good streaming game. But in terms of a game, there's no replayability, because as soon as you get your outcome, it isn't scary again. Once you get the experience of, what, they're watching me play? Oh my god! Well, you know what the fucking twist is again.
The biggest drive is just saving the characters, or
Yeah.
trying to get the best ending, which takes a lot of time to do.
Yeah, and it totally diminishes the tension if you're trying to just accomplish a goal. It's like backtracking in a Castlevania game. It ruins the atmosphere. So, there's that. Overplaying ruined the magic of this game. A lot of people never even got a chance to play it themselves because everyone and their mama was playing this game on YouTube. And so a lot of the fucking magic of this game is thinking that it's just a happy-go-lucky fucking anime girl cute-a-thon, and then all of a sudden it's a fucking meta horror game. But as soon as fucking Markiplier started playing it, it was like, okay, obviously this is not a fucking visual novel. And that's not me shitting on Markiplier specifically. That's just an example of, like, it wouldn't be everywhere if it was just what it seemed. And there was no effort being made to just pretend it was what it was appearing to be.
I really can't wait for their second game.
See, that's my last gripe. They teased the second game. It still ain't out. It's been years, man. Where the fuck is it? Like, at this point, people are forgetting Doki Doki ever happened. So that's all my gripes with Doki Doki Literature Club.
Can I have a small, nice remembrance moment?
If you speak loudly.
In our playthrough, do you remember when Yuri's eyes started floating away from her face? And I was like, come sail away! Come sail! And it hit Ivy so hard, she couldn't fucking breathe. It was like, she was like, I don't know why, it was just fucking perfect. Something about it makes me laugh every time I think of it. Not because of what happened or what I said, but just of how funny Ivy thought it was.
Definitely. I mean, I look so forward to going through those streams on the highlight compilations, because
Yeah, I don't.
Well, that's why you're not editing them, honey.
I just mean for Doki Doki, I feel like it was so cringe that I didn't just read the script, I riffed it.
It was really funny, and we all enjoyed it. And I will say this every time you bring this up. So, meh. Moving on to number 8. New entry into the list. It's Temptation's Ballad. This wasn't out when I made my original list. It's Shirokoi's second visual novel. And, like, this is a gripe other people have. I don't have it. Is that since he's doing this, he's not doing repeat.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is vent number 5.
I don't have a problem with Shirokoi pursuing this instead of repeat for the time being. He's been working on repeat for fucking tons of years. He's a one-man show. He does the art, the scripting, the coding, the writing, all of it by himself. If he wants a fucking break, he can take a fucking break. He goddamn deserves it. That's not a gripe of mine. The gripes I have are pretty small with this one because it's really early on. The game spends no time establishing the lore. Like, it's all character-based. And that's not a problem, right? Like, having a character-focused thing is totally fine. But, like, it seems like they're just sort of casually mentioning how the world is when it comes up, as opposed to actually spending time establishing what the world is. Because this is a world with magic. This is a world with fantasy. This is a world where certain things are allowed and certain things aren't. Like, there's a lot of shit that you just have to accept as being a thing just because it's in a fantasy world, but it's not the normal fucking... Even in fantasy worlds, there are differences in the fucking rules. Like, just establishing it as fantasy and then explaining as you go doesn't work with everything. Because certain things will come out of nowhere and it's like, I guess that's a fucking thing. Okay. Why does the fucking guy in charge of the prisons have a cowboy hat? Why is there magic in these things, the fucking crystals? Why is that a thing? Why is, how the fuck is everyone so clean? Like, what the fuck is the history of this land? Like, there's so many things that I want to know that are not at all went into. And so that is a big problem for me, because it makes me feel like you don't want to talk about the world you're building, you just want to play in it. And that's fine unless you care about what world you're playing in. And I do. And then, of course, there's the easy gripe to go with. There's needless sex, where moments do not need it. That is a thing that happens in Repeat as well, but I will get to that because it is also on this list. I have no problem with sexual content in and of itself, but where it doesn't make sense and becomes averting to the plot, it becomes actively harmful and obnoxious. It can be that way sometimes. If I'm burning so many bridges with this thing, I have to keep saying, like, these aren't my only opinions about the games. I'm just saying the complaints. And these are my top 10 favorites, so obviously I love them. God damn it. Alright, moving on. Number 7, The Smoke Room. The Smoke Room also wasn't out when this list was made. And it is also early on, so that can make it a little less, a little harder to judge. One big problem is that this is a prequel to Echo. As such, when you get characters that are talking about changing things for the better and making things whatever, you know it doesn't work out. Because if everything was fixed in the prequel, the sequel would have nothing going on. If everything was fixed in the Smoke Room, Echo would be a dating sim. You know, based in a normal world, and everyone would be happy. And there'd be no evil town or meth rapists. Like, there you go. So that is a limitation when you're basing it a horror prequel with the same villain, in a sense, because the villain in any Echo game is the town and what it does to its people. Another problem is that this is a prequel to a game that isn't finished. Echo has 2 prequels. One is Echo Route 65, and the other is The Smoke Room. Route 65 kind of made sense because it was just telling a mini story building up into the childhood. So it didn't really need to be finished, the main game. But the main game hasn't concluded with any explanations for anything. And I'll get more into that when we get to Echo. But because we don't have a bow wrapped up on anything to make us want to see what happens before it, to lead up to it, it's weird to start exploring what happened before it when you haven't finished the first one. So it's just a little fucking weird that. Not impossible, but it is a problem in a little bit of a way. This is a problem that the Smoke Room shares with Echo. It tells us a whole lot of maybe something. There's a whole lot of hinting at something going on, but it never actually explains what that thing is. Like, in one of the updates, you see a map where people were building fireplaces wherever they went, and there was a big-ass circle around Echo where they didn't go into it. Interesting. That's a very compelling image and story. What the fuck does it mean? Why were they avoiding it? What were they avoiding? They don't explain it. They just move on. They leave it to us to, like, figure it out a little bit. And yeah, it's early on in the Smoke Room, so maybe there will be more of an explanation later on. But Echo is almost completed. And there has been a lot of things that happen in Echo that they just sort of dealt with the consequences and then left without explaining what the fuck happened. They talk in really vague terms. The soil is cursed and all this other stuff. And it's like, what the fuck is the curse? What are the monsters from? What the fuck happened to Sydney? It seemed to matter what route you're on, the thing that happened to Sydney seems to change. So I don't know. Man. Oh, here's one. This is a prequel set in the time of the first big hysteria, I think. But it's not about that. Because the big event between James Hendricks and the Masada person, I don't remember their name, John Begay. John Begay ain't shown up in the game yet. I don't know if this happened before or after that. Apparently, there was a big murder in the mine before the game, and I thought that murder was what led to the thing between James and John. But apparently, no, maybe? I thought James left the town after that? I really don't understand what's going on. And why, when the intrigue of so many things that happen in the main game is about what happened then, is this game not about that? It hasn't even been addressed, so it makes me think it hasn't happened yet. But if it has happened, what the fuck? And if it hasn't happened, why is nothing leading up to it? Like, there's no hint that this is leading to anything. It's all about Sam and this murder mystery that has not at all involved James or John. The peripheral characters, one of them, the other one doesn't even exist. Oh, this one is kind of a gripe with Echo more, but it concerns the main character of the smoke room, so I put it here. An anticlimactic end to Samuel. We don't know for 100% sure, because it isn't stated specifically, but it is basically determined that the person that passes the curse of Echo onto Sydney's father, who then passes it on to Sydney, who then passes it on to Chase, was Samuel, which means that Sydney's dad killed Sam, which is sad, but it's so underwhelming how it happened. Bri, you don't know about this yet. Do you mind me saying it?
No, go ahead. I wasn't even listening.
Oh, well, that's good. Glad you're invested.
Well, it's not so much that I'm not invested. I know you would probably talk about spoilers, so I've been distracting myself.
I get you. Well, in Echo, it is basically said, without it saying flat out, that Sam dies from being run over. He's out walking on the highway for some fucking reason. He's old now. He's lamenting the fact that the world around him isn't the world he knows. He doesn't belong here. And then all of a sudden, Sydney's dad, I should say, is driving along with the girl from the diner, and they accidentally hit him because they're not paying attention to the road. And he's trapped under the car. They try to lift it off of him. And as he's trying to get out, his head moves under the tire, and they slip, and he gets crushed by the tire. And he dies. And that's it. Like, I don't know about you, but that seems pretty fucking underwhelming considering all the shit he's going through right now. And especially since the way it's played is that he was alive after getting hit by the car, but he just sort of inches his fucking head under the tire, and then it slowly crushes him. Like, I don't know if that's just a shitty way to die or whatever, but that fucking sucked to read, man. And then his body gets ditched with the car, and that same truck is the thing that, you know, he was with when Sydney shot him, and then Sydney shot his dad, and then during Route 65 when you walk up on it, and it's I don't fucking know, man. I just want to, I want it all wrapped up in a bow so badly, but it's just not at all happening. Oh, here's a one that's a lot lighter. Why the fuck is there a giant ass telescope in Echo in the fucking like early 1900s? Like, this place is like frontier, barely has running water, fucking mining town, dirt roads. What the hell does Murdoch's sister why does she have a fucking domed telescope? Giant fucking industrial, belongs in a goddamn astronomy fucking building ass telescope It's so unrealistic. It's so fucking stupid. I mean, it's cool that it's there, but what the hell? Now, here's one that's sort of goes into my like fan theory that Echo and Adastra are in the same universe, which is not at all confirmed, and most people do not think it's true. I don't even really think it is true. I just think it's fun to think about, and that there are a lot of things hinting towards it. But Echo goes out of its way to point out that it is not sharing an Earth that shares the geography of our real Earth. Adastra does not do that. It establishes pretty clearly what is and isn't Earth. But Echo has Saturn. Like, real ass actual Saturn. It shows a picture of it, describes it perfectly, calls it Saturn. Nothing else in Echo is referred to as anything based around our real world, but Saturn's a thing. So what the fuck? Are you on Earth or not? And then the final gripe for the smoke room is that everyone has the want to fuck the protagonist syndrome. Like, I get we're playing as an actual whore, and it's a little weird to have a dating aspect to a game where you don't have people that actively want to fuck you, but like, the best dating sims are characters. There are interactions in dating sims. This is not a dating sim, but in any romantic portion of a game, it doesn't start with everyone wanting to fuck each other by default. Like, you get to know each other or whatever, but everyone wants to fuck the main character in the smoke room. Everyone, seemingly. So it's like, it's a little fucking uncomfortable and more than a little unrealistic, and it really takes me out of it. That's Spoofy in the background whining. Really wish she wasn't. That was Bri. Moving swiftly along to the Hayseed Knight, number 6. Don't have much in the way of gripes with the Hayseed Knight. There's not a lot of it out right now, unfortunately. This is a gripe that I totally understand the reasoning for. It just is an unfortunate thing. It takes too long to get an update. And this is another thing. Maxi does almost all of it themselves, and it's voice acted, and the voice actors are paid, and the coding is a lot more complicated than a lot of other visual novels. As such, it makes sense that it takes a long fucking time to update, and that's without taking any of Maxi's real life situations into account. That being said, this isn't the context crew. This is just things that are not optimal, and having slow updates is not optimal. That's not me blaming anything in particular. That just is true. The lore density in the Hayseed Knight is the exact opposite of Temptation's Ballad. There's way too much available to learn way too early that has nothing to do with what we're actually dealing with. Even Maxi was like, you don't have to read all of that right out front. And I was like, well, why is it there? Make it available when it matters. And getting through all of it took a long fucking time. And I just hope to Christ that all of it gets paid off in context, because if it doesn't, then it was a waste of time. Tonal inconsistency is a thing with this game. Sometimes it's really lighthearted and really fun. Other times it tries to be really dark and really serious and trying to say a message. And sometimes it tries to do one when seemingly conveying the other. And it's a little clunky in that regard. Here's length. It's short right now. There's only 3 chapters out right now, and since the first 2 chapters got reworked, I have to go all the way back to the beginning, and it's been a pleasurable experience to do so, but, you know, the game's been in the works for years, and we only got 3 chapters, so a little short there. From what I have played, nothing significant has happened yet. The whole story is about how Adder becomes a knight and how it impacts his legacy going forward, but we haven't gotten anywhere close to that, and it makes me worried that this is a very, very long story, and we're not getting anywhere anytime fast. And the last one is that given the complications trying to actually get updates for this game and how long it takes and how much Maxi's talked about, after I get this chapter done, I'm just dropping off the face of the earth and I don't want anything to do with it and I probably won't finish it. It makes it hard for me to hope for a conclusion to this game because it seems like Maxi is not even confident that they want to finish it. Like, they want to have it finished, but like, doing it is fucking hard. So it makes it kind of hard to be invested in actually seeing it get finished. There's been a lot of projects get dropped over the years, and so it's hard to get invested in one that you know is at risk of being dropped already. Number 5 is Repeat. Next on the complaint-only trip, the prologue of Repeat needs to be rewritten almost entirely. It's corny, it's fucking weirdly written, the characters are way different than they turn out to be. It's because it was written a long time ago. One nitpick for me is that the character of the main character's personality is established. It is defined. The history is defined. And it has a defined name already in there as Yuka, which is a weird fucking name. However, you are allowed to change the name of the character, but everyone gets pissed at you when you do. And even Shirokoi said that if they could take that out, they would. So yeah, that's a gripe that even Shirokoi has. The out of nowhere sex scenes in the early days, obviously, like, you gotta drum up interest somehow, but like, it harms the narrative. It makes no sense, and it's literally just there for eye candy, because it doesn't add into the plot. Like, you can choose to or to not do them. It won't matter when you choose your character. And it gets ignored even in its own context. I remember there was a moment where, like, we had stroked Sissel off in a shower. We were very intimate with them. And then later on, they were like, "Oh, why do you want to hang out with me? That's weird." Like, that's tonal inconsistency. The art needs to be updated because a lot of the later sprites are a lot better detailed than the early ones, and so the old ones need to be replaced because it's really noticeable when an older sprite comes up. It's just what happens when you do something for long enough. You get really good at it. How dare you? How dare you develop your skills, Shirokoi? The UI could be cooler. I've seen a lot of cool UIs and designs for text boxes and stuff like that, but Repeat just sort of has a gray box. It's kind of a nitpick there, but could be cooler. The backgrounds are just posterized pictures of real life shit, and Shirokoi has mentioned that he has no intention of going through and paying for background art, which I think is a shame, because when you get into a CG, the backgrounds are drawn. Shirokoi has proven he can draw good backgrounds, but it is a lot to do backgrounds because there's a lot of locations. But it looks bad when it's just a picture of some shit, like a real life picture. There's a lot of, "I'll explain this later," or I don't want to say this now, or whatever. Just talk to each other. If it's a matter of life and death, don't explain it later. Just fucking explain shit. That's a gripe with multiple stories I've experienced in multiple mediums. It's just fucking frustrating and needless. Sissel can be way too emo sometimes. Like, he's got a lot of reasons to have emotional problems, but like, sometimes it makes sense and sometimes it doesn't. While we're talking about characters, Owen can't decide if he's Darius or Owen, because Owen is very flirty and very sexually active. But where Darius and Owen differ is Owen is way more quick to be selfless, even though he's way more oblivious. But sometimes that just doesn't happen, and his character changes a lot as the game progresses. And so tidying up where he's acting more in one way than the other could be a lot, could benefit. And then the last gripe is that there's a huge reveal before the character decisions. Which route are you on? Of which, the backstory of who is the Black Cat. As soon as it's revealed, it doesn't matter anymore. It never gets mentioned outside of an odd reference here or there, and it gets and explain away why Philip's able to have contacts and stuff. But like, he never does any Black Cat shit, almost ever. He once or twice, but like, people just sort of act like it's a normal thing after it gets explained. It's still not a normal thing. But oh well. Number 4, extracurricular activities. Again, just doing the complaints, not my only opinions, but here we go. The days are too fucking long, and the game is too long in general. Every character has a 35-day route, and the days take hours, if not an hour, if not longer, to get through. That's way too fucking much. I've 100 and however many fucking episodes. Some of the episodes were shorter, but none of them have been short. Only like 1 or 2 have ever been short, and those were the catch-up days, which happened because this game has had a lot of programming things where I had to rebuild save files, and those are very fucking hard to do when the guides are not readily available. Fortunately, Dine has become a friend of mine, and so I was able, hopefully he stays a friend of mine after he hears this, if he does hear this, but I love you, Dine. Please don't hate me. But he was able to provide me with some other guides, some, not all. There used to be more. Don't know where they went. They became Patreon exclusive. And so that kind of hurt. Especially since I'm not allowed to play the Patreon builds. And I don't have the money to be a patron. But anyway. So that's some of the ones. Not really in the order I meant to. But yeah. Darius's characterization is very inconsistent. Because some days he is just a really, really terrible person on his route or in others. And in other days, he is more of the misunderstood tragic character that is more compelling. But other days, he is just the absolute worst fucking person. And it makes it really hard to care about him, when obviously you need to when you're on his own route. There are a lot of moments in this game where trauma is replacing drama, because there's a difference between drama and trauma, even though they sound very similar. Drama is a gripping, like, ooh, what's going to happen? Oh my gosh. Trauma is, oh my god, that's horrible. Oh fuck. And yeah, it's way easier to care about trauma when it's happening, but like, I don't think in Chester's route we needed to get fucking kidnapped and assaulted in order for us to sympathize with Chester's backstory. That was trauma replacing drama. That's just one example. It happens a lot in this game. Here's another one. Everyone wants our boyfriend syndrome. There's a lot of instances where everyone wants to fuck whoever's route we're on. And a lot of it does come from Darius or Richard or sometimes Maria or just side characters. Spencer gets it a lot. Darius gets it a lot, where it seems like everyone wants to take our boyfriend away. That is unpleasant. I don't want to deal with that when I'm trying to date her. It's fucking uncomfortable that everyone wants to fuck our fucking boyfriend. It's like every route, too. I think Chester's the only one, and he's a fucking rape victim. So, like, Christ. So, yeah. That's just obnoxious. Oh, hypersexuality and needless sexuality. After a bit in this, while you're playing extracurricular activities, the name's too fucking long. It's hard to say, and it's a lot of characters. But after a bit, every character devolves into a series of kinks. Like, not entirely, but like all of a sudden every day is defined with wake up with something sexual happening throughout the day, where there will always be some sort of reference to sex, and at the end of the day there will be some sort of sexual thing, and that goes on for a long time at the end of the routes. Sexual content in and of itself is not a problem. I am totally fine with sexual content, but it has to have a reason and serve a purpose. And when characters go from complex characters to being just like conduits for various sexual kinks, it becomes disorienting and kind of ruins a lot of characters. Like, even it's written into the story that it was confusing to the main character that Dozer would be such a kinky guy, and I guess it can be explained, and a lot of it is explained, it just feels unnatural. And like, Richard was not at all sexual, and then all of a sudden he became a buff Darius. It's like, and that only happened because everyone was thirsting after him, and now you got to build into a Richard route, which, by the way, I don't want a Richard route, man. I don't want a Richard route. I don't care. I never wanted a Richard route. But a lot of people were thirsting for him, and now Dine is making another 35-day long story for a character that you will not be interacting with at school, where your fucking story happens. There's no extracurricular activities where there isn't a curricular. Fuck. So, like, I don't know how that story's gonna go, or how it's gonna play into anything you're doing. I didn't want it in the first place. I'm sure it'll be great, but just... especially knowing that there's a 35-day length. Like, why the fuck is that it's so long? At least with Tennis Ace, they skip days every once in a while. So you don't have to live every single fucking day. You go from acquaintance to fucking lover in a month. That's too fast to be realistic. Especially with the amount of shit you cram into those days. Because it's so fucking long, replayability takes a backseat. I hate rebuilding the save files in this game because it takes so goddamn long, and some of the choices don't make sense or are unpleasant to make because they're the right choice in the game but are not pleasant to go through. Like, making Harold jealous by seemingly playing along with Darius was the right choice. I don't like that. That's gross. Why would you do that to someone who has problems with people leaving him or making him feel bad about who he is? Like, that just seems like a bad fucking choice. But yeah, I don't... Some of these games I want to play through multiple times to see the different outcomes. Extracurricular activities? No. Once I get through it, I don't want to do it again. Because it's so fucking long. It's too much. It's too much. And a lot of the things are fucking hard to get right. Like, one or two wrong choices, you get a bad ending. That's it. One or two, that's all it takes. Very finicky. But anyway, so that's some of my gripes for extracurricular activities. Again, this is my favorites. These are my favorite visual novels. I love these. I have a lot of positive things to say about these, but I'm just listing the criticisms here. God damn it. I feel like I'm offending people. Moving on. Number 3 is Tennis Ace. Why the hell are the words on and in backwards? What the fuck is that? I don't know where that comes from, but it is obnoxious and happens all the time, and it needs to be fucking fixed in revision. What the fuck? The days are way too fucking long. Even longer than extracurricular activities sometimes. Like, there was one time where I was playing an update for a character, it had 2 days, and it took 3 hours to record. What the fuck? And some days are shorter, but like, sometimes it just feels like there are certain conversations that don't need to happen, or take too long, or because every character's got to get a word in, it seems like everyone's got to say something on a certain topic, and then it seems like everyone's ganging up on a topic that in an unnatural conversational way. one of these examples are when you have to include all the extra characters, the side characters, then they all show up at the same time. And all with nothing to add to the story. They all have one sprite, so they're not interesting to look at. The characters are mildly interesting or entertaining, not terribly so. So they really seem just like filler. Like, oh yeah, they're still here. I don't care about the Rat Brothers or the bear with the toast in his mouth or the student teacher lady or the student lead or. I don't fucking care about these people. And I especially don't care that they all show up all at the same time with nothing to fucking add. Also, there's way too much of people shitting on the main character for being good at shit and for doing stuff that they all do themselves. Like, they'll fucking complain about the main character making a harsh joke when everyone is ripping everyone's asshole wide open all the time. But when it's happening to us, every character in the group has to say it's that as well. And sometimes with very unnatural sounding dialogue. And so it'll be like, everyone in the group takes their turn to shit on us. And it's like, okay, I get it. But also, you're doing the same shit. So get off my fucking dick and take a look at yourselves in the mirror for a fucking change. But that never happens. Self-reflection does not fucking happen in this game. The prologue's way too fucking long. The first day in particular is way too long, but it takes way too long to get to the route choices. It's too fucking much. Like, the game is a balance between telling the main character story and telling your dating character story. It seems like the first half is dedicated to the main character, and as soon as you choose a character, the main character's story is just gone, except for the occasional points where it gets mentioned. Like, it's like a tale of two different stories, and they don't blend very well yet. It's kind of like this. I got another gripe here. It's like the Steven Universe complaint. There are moments in the cartoon Steven Universe where the main character, Steven, is in a place or a scenario or a scene when it makes no fucking sense for him to be. Like, later on, the game experiments with shifting perspectives to different characters when the main character does not need to be around. And that's good. That's a very good thing to do. But earlier on, before that, there were some times where the main character just didn't need to be in a place for something to be happening, but we needed it to be known as it was happening to the reader. Like, why the fuck were we at the guitar shop? We didn't need to be there. Well, they were for moral support. Like, what the fuck? We didn't even do anything. Like, nothing that happened there involved us. So what the fuck? That's just one example, mind you. I'm not just picking on that scene in particular. Had to take a drink. The tennis matches are no fun to deal with because I don't know a shit thing about tennis, and they take for a long time to get through. And the game's about tennis, but like, they don't teach you anything about tennis. So if you don't know anything about tennis, it's very easy to get your choices wrong. And the fucking QuickTime events are ridiculous. I hate them in any instance they show up in. I fucking hate them. Gross. Don't like them. At least they're better than Extracurricular Activities QuickTime events where there's no progress bar and you're just pressing random keys. Like, Tennis Ace does QuickTime events better than Extracurricular Activities for sure. Oh yeah. This gripe is just written down as, why is Yuichi doing anything? Like, there's so many things where it's like he's doing various shit seemingly for no reason. And he's got so many different things he can do and is great at. But why? Like, why is he doing something? I don't know. That one's a weird one to explain. But it just seems like our main character's floating into weird areas that he would have no reason to go into. Oh, here's one. The fucking kid brother is just thoroughly unpleasant. Like, he has some shining moments, but like, by and large, his dynamic, like, we don't get to see where, Yuichi keeps referencing a time where they got along a lot better. We never get to see that. And a lot of the time, the brother is just fucking playing into the shitting on the main character circus, and it gets fucking old. And I don't know if it's just me or not, but a fucking young kid fucking talking like they're hot shit, aka just being needlessly mean, is fucking obnoxious and unpleasant, and I don't want to fucking deal with it. Careful now. There's chords right where you're pressing. Shuichi is not a healthy option for a route. Just straight up. I think similarly of Spencer, but Shuichi in particular, he is not a character that needs a romance route. His character needs a good friend. But as exemplified by some of the things that they've been going through, the power dynamic is just not good for a romantic interaction. It's just not good for either one. Unrealistic expectations, too high a standards, long overdue, telling of feelings. There's no way that it was going to go well. And it is very likely that if this were in real life, the relationship would have ended and it would have been very unpleasant. And the last one is the bad routes, the bad endings. They're way too harsh. Way too harsh. When it goes bad, it goes way too fucking bad. So that's just, like, you have to have an obviously this was a bad choice kind of thing, but like, good lord. Like, especially June's was like needlessly fucking traumatizing. Going on to number 2, we have Adastra on the only complaining about my favorite visual novels thing. My number 2 favorite visual novel of all time, Adastra. The sex scenes are unnecessary. Straight up unnecessary. The Neferu one, unnecessary. The one when we come back, unnecessary. Like, I get that they're part of it, but like, those 2 scenes where they actually do it are unnecessary. They come out of nowhere, they cause slight drama in the moment, or are barely referenced, and then they're just gone. And it feels totally incongruent with the rest of the game, which mostly was clean. It took me a while to get used to the art style. I did eventually warm up to the art style, but it took me a while to get past it looking super cartoony and disproportionate. The romance between the main character and Amicus is rushed. You skip months of progress at a time because the story is too short, but it's told over a longer period of time than would make sense. And so a lot of the growing chemistry happens off screen. There are lots of hints pushing towards the sequel, Kamia, without giving a conclusion as to what we're building towards. Like, we just have a lot of nebulous ideas, but no real idea of where we're going, and not a lot gets wrapped up. And now we're building towards a sequel. It's like, we haven't finished this one first in terms of story. A lot of characters do nothing until they're shown doing something. Like, there's seemingly no emphasis on this character was doing something in the background the whole time, except for Alex. And, like, Cassius was the fucking emperor. And we heard about him doing more while on the campaign trail than when he was actually the emperor. Like, what the fuck was anyone doing until we show up? Also, speaking of Alex, he got no punishment. He was actively trying to sabotage and destroy the whole planet. And he even tried to steal a ship at the very end. And just nothing. Just, oh, there he goes. Whatever. That was ridiculous. Oh, and then, of course, forcing the protagonist out of the sequel. This is more of a gripe against Kamia, but, like, because of the way that the way Adastra ends, there's no way for the protagonist to actually be in it. So now we have to change protagonists, and the whole story about Adastra was in the future, the protagonist and Amicus will be together again, but the sequel story can't have that. And it makes me really worried that we'll get a Final Fantasy X-2 situation where, because we can't have a romance with the protagonist and the love interest, then someone else is going to try to romance our previous love interest. I don't want that. I didn't like it in Final Fantasy X too, and I don't want it here. I get really worried about someone trying to get with Amicus. I don't want to see that. It would really fucking ruin him for me. My number 1 is Echo. My favorite visual novel of all time is Echo, and here are just the complaints. Again, I could have a lot of good things to say, but here are just the complaints. The art is inconsistent. Sometimes it's good and more photorealistic, other times it's more cartoony. I don't like the people who like Leo as a character, because Leo as a character is the worst fucking character. And fuck you if you're trying to erase his whole point as a character by trying to be like, oh, well, he should have a good ending where he winds up with Chase and everything's fine. No, Leo is not supposed to be with Chase. It is a bad relationship even before the corruption happened. Leo is a terrible fucking character and should not be enjoyed. And if you're trying to romanticize Leo with Chase, you are missing the point. You're not paying attention to the characters. You are actively ignoring the story because you like the idea of a wolf being with an otter, and that's not fucking justified to the people who write the story or to the story that's trying to be told. You're surface level, shallow, and you don't deserve this fucking story. Moving on. As I mentioned with the smoke room, Echo tells us a whole lot of maybe something. It hints at a lot of stuff, but doesn't actually say what's going on. It teased a lot for the prequel and sequel before actually concluding anything this time around, which actively takes away from the anticipation of the prequels and sequels. Flynn's character is completely inconsistent. He completely changes depending on what route you're on, and even in his own route, he goes from being a hypersexual deviant to being a very introspective, calculating, just trying to know what's going on kind of guy. And in other routes, he's just a dick. And it really comes down to the fact that it's obvious that the different routes are written by different people, because all the characters are different depending on what fucking route you're on. And some routes are more wordy than others. Some routes tell more than they show, and other routes are vice versa. And so when it comes down to it, you need some narrative consistency when you have a game where you're supposed to play multiple routes. The game is legitimately traumatizing in a lot of instances. I still have trouble looking into a closet in the middle of the night because I see Flynn's fucked up eye socket face. Not eye socket, but electric socket face. And the bad ending for Leo is still in my head and still fucks with me every time I see it. And everything with Brian is traumatizing to hell. Also, why is Brian invincible? He's a methed up fucking bear, but that shouldn't make him indestructible. Why the hell is anyone staying in this town, especially the main characters? As soon as something starts going bad, they should get the fuck out of there. And not every route they have the crux of needing to find Carl, because I understand that one. You need to find your friend. But that doesn't happen in every other route. So why the fuck is it? Why are they sticking around when that isn't a thing? There's no good reason to, other than the whole like, oh, they always come back and they're stuck. Like, they don't fucking... It makes no sense. Like the horror movie. Why would you stay in the house? There's a murder in the house. Get the fuck out of the house. Makes no sense. A lot of the routes are over, and none of them explain shit. It just shows what happened and the consequence of what happened, but they don't explain what happened. And since they're all done, unless once Jenna's route ends, we get an overarching finishing route, I have to wait until Echo 2 to hope to Christ anything gets resolved. And even when that happens, what the fuck are we going to do? Which route is the canon route leading into that one? Because one of the routes have to be canon in order for you to build off of it. So what the hell is going to happen? I don't know what the fuck's going on. And it's hard for me to be excited to see the next chapter of what's happening when I don't know what the fuck is happening. So yeah, the biggest problem with Echo is it's trying to tell a story, and it's trying to finish the story when it hasn't explained anything yet. And I've been playing this game for years, and it's getting really fucking hard to be patient. But I'm still trying. And I still have a lot of things I love about this game. I have a lot of things I love about all the games that I have mentioned on this list. But this was just me giving some of my complaints, some more important than others, obviously, about my favorite visual novels, ones that I absolutely love. And so... please don't be offended, anyone. Don't think that that's all I think about these games. A lot of things I could be saying positive, but I just didn't this time around. Anyway, so that's that. Hope I didn't burn too many bridges. Ugh.